Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Hello, can you hear me and see me?
Yes, Moshe, we can hear you and see you.
Perfect. How are you?
Very well, fine, thank you.
It's
Good to have you on the call. What's your time zone at your end? Because we are 5 p.m. here.
Yeah, so I'm Eastern time zone. It's 11 in the morning.
11 in the morning. Okay, that's about 6-7 hours in terms of time difference. I think 6 hours.
Yeah, I think it's 6 hours. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Glad to have you here. So just give me 1 minute. Let's try and get everybody on the call, and then we are going to get started shortly.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Moshe.
Hi, Evelyn.
Everyone. This is Evelyn. It's good to have you here. Okay, so I'll say good morning because it's morning at your end.
Yes. Good morning.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for joining in early.
It's
so
my
let's
pleasure.
get our persons to join so that we can get started.
Perfect. So now. Ooh, nice one. Let's go to the left. My daughter just got me coffee, so I'm all set.
All right, amazing. So we're just trying to notify everyone that the meeting is starting shortly, and we can have everyone join in. I'm personally super excited to be on this call. Really excited to learn from your years of experience. You know, to have somebody doing product management for 30 years is a whole lot, like a whole lot. When I said, I was like, wow, because in the Nigerian tech ecosystem, yeah, product management is just kind of getting the traction right here in Nigeria. We know, like, everything we have been doing in Nigeria can be like maybe 5 to 7 years at max. I think the person that I know that has been in product management for 7 years is just one person, right? In a pool of so many product managers that are doing product management here, right here in Nigeria. So it sounds way over my head that we're having somebody who has done product management for 30 years. And I'm really excited to hear your story and, you know, hear how you transition into the phase and then how you got started and, you know, where you are currently right now. So just give us 1 more minute.
No worries.
And then we are going to get started shortly.
Perfect. And maybe I will share my screen so everyone will see that you can see my screen. Yeah, you have to enable sharing. Yeah, I see more people are coming. That's great. Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you make Moshe the host so he can share his screen?
Okay, 1 second. Okay. All right, Moshe, I have made you a co-host.
Perfect.
Okay.
Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, perfectly coming up.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Should I start?
All right, so let me just kind of do a quick introduction. Can you see my face?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, amazing. Glad to connect with you, Moshe.
you.
So quick introduction. Thank you for choosing to join this section today. We are super excited in the community to have an experienced person like yourself. Like I said earlier, it's a big opportunity for us, because especially in the Nigerian tech ecosystem where product management is just kind of getting its traction, getting started in the space. So, we are learning a lot from the international community, but we are also very passionate. That's one thing I know about we Nigerians. We are super, super duper passionate about what we are trying to do, our work. And really, we in the community, we have been having this discussion how to improve ourselves independently in our career paths and all of that, right? And we are super excited to really have you on this call and to learn from your years of experience. And thank you so much for choosing to join us and have these conversations with us this evening, or this morning at your end and this evening at our end, right? So I'm just going to introduce Moshe for everybody on the call. So Moshe is I hope I got the name correctly, Moshe.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. So Moshe is a senior product manager at Procom in Toronto, Canada. He has been doing product management for 30 years, and that's what we are going. We're right here to come to learn. Moshe is also an author, is a startup advisor, a podcaster, a mentor, a loving husband, and a father. And interesting thing to note is that Moshe started out his career as a software developer with the Israeli Defense Force. When I saw this from everyone, I was like, oh, wow. Somebody coming from the army to product management. I am curious to hear that story, right? How did you transition from being a soldier, right, and then becoming a product manager? That's something that is like, okay, where did that transition process come from? Again, glad to have you, Moshe. Personally, my name is Olabanji, or you can call me Samuel. Samuel is like my English name. I think that'll be a lot more easier to remember.
I like Olabanji.
Oh, you like Olabanji? Oh,
yeah. It's like I kept my Hebrew name, so I didn't come up with an English name. So I like the name that a person was born in.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Okay, so I'm glad to have you once again. So Moshe, you can get started now. Feel free to take care of the time. I think we have about 30 to 40 minutes for you to talk to us. And then before going to asking questions to learn from your experience.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Olabanji, for introducing me, for the nice introduction, and also for Evelyn to inviting me. It's my pleasure to share my experience. And you will see throughout the presentation, what I did is I actually lay out my entire career. You will see my entire career through the presentation and what I learned in every position that I was about product management. So like you said, I'm more than 30 years. I started in 1989 back in the army, in the Israeli army. And I started as a software developer. And the positions I had after that for the first 20 years were all actually in software development positions. But I never really had a product developer on my team. So I had to learn how to do these things, and I had to do it on my own, even though I didn't even know I was doing product management. And that's what one of the key things I want to share, that product management sometimes can come from many different things. And even if you have a different position that is not, the title is not a product manager, it's still one of those things that it's one of those things that you can learn from the position where you are. And if you're aspiring product manager, what can you do today in your current position to get to that goal? So let me dive into it, and I hope I don't disappoint. So first of all, a few 4 quick facts before I start. The first one is, so you mentioned I started in the army in Israel because I'm Israeli. I was born and raised in Israel, and everyone in Israel have to go to the army. It's part of our life over there. And I was lucky enough to be able to be a software developer in the army. So I learned software development, and then I practiced software development in the army. Right now I live in Toronto, like you mentioned. I moved here in 2002, but before that I was actually a couple of years in 6 years in the US. So first I moved to the United States and then I moved to Canada. This is the first computer that I developed on. So I don't know if any one of you knows this computer, but this was in 1990, 1990 that I started developing. It's a digital VAX. The operating system was called VMS. They don't exist anymore these days, I think. And then, you know, I've been doing it for so many years. And like you mentioned, I also have the podcast, the Product for Product podcast, and also the book that I launched recently, which is not a product book at all, but I also have some learning from that about product management. So first of all, my first position was in, like you mentioned, in the IDF. I was a software developer in the IDF for 6 years, from 1999 to 1995. Over there, I developed several, mainly one system, but it was quite complex and had different things that were evolving throughout the years. What I want to share with you is more about, you know, what I learned through that process, you know, about the product, about product management, etc. So the first thing I learned is to listen to the users. I was actually sitting next building to my users. So my users were right there. I was able to go and, you know, tap on their door and ask them questions all the time. So that was a very useful thing for me because I didn't have to guess what they want. I didn't have to you know, ask other people. I went directly to the users, and that's really what you want as a product manager. I was able to observe how they were working. So they showed me, this is what I'm doing. This is the problem I have. This is my issues. And then I was able to build something for them. So I was able to identify the problems. And as a product manager, this is really important for you to be able to identify what your what the problems that your users have, because this is the domain that you are at. Product managers are in the problem domain, and then the developers are in the solution domain. So I was on both. Again, I didn't have a product manager. I was a developer, but this experience gave me that ability to learn that that's what I have to do. And then I was able to build a solution to create value to them. So as a developer, I built it myself, but when you work with a team, you bring that voice of the users to your team, and then you can build together the right solutions for them. Now, we also had a lot of innovation back then, and this is where you want to look into, you know, what other technologies are out there, available out there that you can bring up and try to solve these problems. The users usually don't know these technologies. They know what they know what they're using. These days, people know way more than they used to in the 90s, mainly because there is much more. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have anything like that. I had floppy disks that I have to move around to move data. So it was a very different days. But even then, Apple actually created a new handheld. It was like the first handheld called Newton. No one knows about it these days because it was a failure. They couldn't really sell it out, but we were trying it out back in the Army to see if we can use it as part of the solution that we gave to our users. So that was a very cool way to learn what is out there. And by all means, we didn't even have the internet. So that was all by, I don't even remember how we found out about this. Maybe someone had some connections at Apple Israel. Maybe someone read an article about it, and then we contacted. But that was a very you always have to look for these things out there. And of course, these days, you know, it's much easier. After that, when I finished the Army, after 6 years, I joined this company. The company name was actually BA Intelligence Networks, but they were acquired by this company called BAN. BAN was a Dutch company, and they were a global company all over the world doing ERP systems. They were actually the #1 competitor for SAP. So if you know SAP, BAN was the #2 back then. These days, they don't exist as a company anymore, but the product still exists under Infor. So Infor is another big company that does ERP systems. And what I was doing over there, I was doing in Israel technical support. And it was a very good way for me to, again, connect with users and get them to actually build empathy to the users and listen to the problem and understand what they have. Now, some of the best product managers I know. I worked with several product managers that came from technical support. So they spend like a year or two in technical support helping users with their problems. And by doing that, they learn the product in and out, and they build this empathy that we really need for the users. And then when they became product managers, they were like so good at that because they knew exactly what the issues that the users have. Sometimes they didn't even have to go and find out about it. They were able to tell, oh, you know what, this is usually a problem because we heard about it already, 50 times when we talked with users. So this really helped me with that to get this empathy to the users. And I think that every product manager should really, on an ongoing basis, even in the company where you work on right now, once in a while, answer the phones, answer the emails, be part of the technical support to really see what the issues are, because this way you can really understand. Now, back then, my clients were both in Israel and in Europe. So I also had this trying to understand different people in different cultures because they might have different issues. And of course, using your own product is one of those things that is very important for every product company. Not every product company actually does it, and it's unfortunate because when you use your own product, you really can understand what the issues are of your product from first person usage. You are the user as well. So some products it's easy. So if you're a developer on Miro, everyone using Miro for doing whatever, so you probably will use it also. But if you're a developer for some financial system and for a bank, and you're not the bank, and you're not even a client of the bank, it's much harder for you to go and use that. Try to find ways to do that, because otherwise it will be, again, you will be one place removed from that. I also learned problem solving, because technical support, that's really what it is. The center is about problems. So you really want to solve problems to the users on an ongoing basis. After that, the same company sent me over to the States. So this is where I moved to the US. I lived for 6 years in Detroit, Michigan. And the headquarters of the company, we were a subdivision of the Dutch company. So the Dutch company was the headquarters of, the parent company. And then the company that sent me over to the States were in Israel. So again, I have to work with all of these different locations. And I had, what I was there, I was actually a support manager and technical director. Again, my position was not a product manager, but what I did was I handled all the, with a team of other, consultants that we hired, I handled all the North American, Canada and US market to bring in this software that required a lot of implementation and integration and customizations. So we had to go to clients and we had to find their problems, and we have to have empathy to the users. And that's where, the things that I learned over there was a lot about, how do I collaborate across continents and time zones? Because we had to go back to the Netherlands and to Israel to find out about, new features or issues that the clients have and stuff like that. We also, because we learned from the clients, we have to learn directly from them, and there are different personas. It was a very complicated system. What it was doing, it's called product data management, and it's part of an ERP system. And it was collecting or managing all the data about a product that the company built. So imagine one of the clients I had, they were building I don't remember the name, but they were building the wings for the Boeing's airplanes. So they were just building wings. They didn't build the entire airplane. Boeing outsourced to them to build the wings. A wing is a very complex system, and it has a lot of parts and a lot of designs elements, and they had to manage it somehow. So they had their designers, their engineers designing them. They created all of these files, and the product management system were managing everything around it. So it was managing the files, document management. It was managing the workflow between people, how they move the files between people. It was managing the bill of materials, what are all the different parts that goes into it. And because each company is different. We had clients in the aerospace and defense. We had clients in other industry, digital industry, the car industry. So each one is a bit different, and each one using a different system. So there is a lot of complexity in there. And working directly with each client, we learn exactly their problems, what they need, and we're able to build the solutions for them. But then we also created, that's another problem that we had, was we created customized solutions for our clients. And then as a product manager, you ask yourself, how do I create a product market fit? If I build customized solutions for clients, especially paying clients, so they're paying you to build that, and that's what we did. Sometimes there was the base system, and on top of the base system, we had to build some customizations for them. How do you maintain this system for them? It becomes a maintenance nightmare to go and maintain for everyone. Again, back then, it wasn't the internet days. I'm still talking, I mean, the internet was there, but it was very like Web 1.0. So this product was hosted on their environments. We had to install the software. We have to support versions of the software for each one of our clients. So it became a maintenance nightmare. And then also you want to create a product market fit so you can sell the product to as many clients, but those clients need to be very similar to each other. So you don't have to get into this nightmare of different versions for each one of them. So that was a huge learning for me as a product manager, what not to do, or what are the issues if you go into customizing your product for each one of your clients. Then I joined another company also in Michigan called SmartTeam. SmartTeam was doing a very similar thing to the previous company. They already started doing it in a newer technology, still not web, still installed, but in a more Windows-based than the previous one. And I was the technical director over there. And I learned very similar things to the previous company. Here already, we didn't do much customizations to the clients because we already knew about this problem and we understood it's a problem. So this was more about, I was the voice of the client between the field, all the different clients across North America, to the headquarters in Israel. So this is also an important thing for product manager. You want to be the voice of the client. First of all, because sometimes it's a remote, headquarters is in one place and you are sitting in another place. Sometimes you are sitting in headquarters, but you still, you have to be the one that say, this is what the clients want, and bring it to the table. Sometimes we have a CPO, Chief Product Officer. So it's very important to the company and they understand it. Sometimes we don't. And then we are the one that really need to bring it up to management, to the executive team, because they may not see it. And we have this responsibility to bring that voice of the client to them. So I've done a lot of that over there. Then I moved to Canada. This is where, the reason I moved to Canada is because my visa expired. I couldn't stay in the States. The visa over there was limited, so I had to move to Canada. And I joined a company called Itai Machine. We were actually they were partners with the previous company that I work in the States. So that's how I knew them. So it was a bit easy for me to find that job. But in general, what we were doing over there is time management system for project management. So our system was tracking time for people for different projects and then feeding it back into project management system. This is where we started in the middle when I was working over there. We started moving into the web, and this was one of those things that I did over there. So I was responsible over there as part of my job, even though again, it wasn't officially a product management job. It was a development director job. I didn't have anyone doing product, so I had to do it myself. So I put up the vision for the company. How do we move to the web, and what do we do to become more, future forward? So I set up the vision. I set up the strategy for that. I created roadmaps for that. I did prioritization because these things this is where I was already in the headquarters. This is a small company, much smaller than the previous one. So I had a much better control over these things, where in the previous companies, I was in the field and I had to send this back to the headquarters in Israel, and they made the prioritization over there. So I helped them with that. But here I already was able to prioritize based on what our vision and strategy is, based on what the clients need and stuff like that. I also learned, what is a sales-driven organization? I knew it from before because the previous ones also did that, but here it was even stronger. And the risk of a sales-driven organization. The sales-driven organizations are basically, they find the client will pay for what they want, and they will do it for them. So it's not so much about the product market fit, it's more about who's going to pay me money to do what I want to do, or it's not so much what I want to do, sometimes it's what the client wants to do. So when you are a sales-driven organization, you have these many big risks of losing focus, chasing the money instead of chasing the product, creating specific products for clients just because they pay for it. And it's a very, very risky thing to have, and we have to pay attention to this. Some of the telltales for that is to see who is really strong in the organization. Is it the sales executive? Is he setting the tone? Is your CEO sales-driven, or is it someone else? Also, another telltale is to see, are they accepting any clients, whether the product fit them or not, and they're trying to shove the product to their needs. And then also, are they accepting money to get paid for specific features? So if they say, you know what, we never had this feature on our roadmap, or we had it, but it was very late on the roadmap, and now we have a new client and they are going to pay us $100,000 to build it, is that a sales-driven or not? So that is probably a sales-driven, because what will happen then is you will only look at that one client, you will only look for their requirements, and it will be not really a good fit for other clients. And then you become like, you have all of these features that only one client is using them, which is a really bad thing for a product. Here also, I had a remote developer. So I had my own developers in Canada and also QA people, etc. But we also had another remote team in Vietnam. So one of our partners, he was originally from Vietnam, and he wanted to go back to Vietnam. So he built like a development team over there. So this is really where I was doing just the product management, because we had like a second product. This is where we started also with .NET. So we moved to .NET back then, ASP.NET. And they built it in Vietnam. So I continue maintaining the old product with my developers in Toronto, and then created the requirements and what we wanted to build with a team in Vietnam. A product manager that doesn't have a team with them, but it's a remote team, it's a different type of experience, and it's a different type of dynamics. You have to set up expectations, you have to set up the trust, you have to be very good on communication. So there is a lot of things that you can learn from that. I don't know if it was a successful or not, because usually when you because one of the things was language. We have some language barriers. Most of the people over there in Vietnam did not speak English. So there was one person that I spoke with, and he spoke with them. So there was always this person in between, which isn't the best. You want to be able to speak with everyone. You want to be able to get everyone's opinion and get them on the team. So I had better experience later on with other teams that I did remotely, but they were in, one of them was in India, another one was in, not with this company, with another company, but another one was in Israel. So that was a much better fit. Now, another thing here that I had to own, again, because I didn't have anyone to own it, is go to market. How do I take this product now and, make it, productize it, documentation, packaging, release notes, support, all of these things that when I was just doing development, I didn't have to worry about, and headquarters had to worry about, where here, was really part of what I have to care for. So go-to-market, sometimes you think about it as this is marketing position, but it's not only marketing. There is a lot of stuff that we as product managers has to do, or to make sure that it happens, because we can build the best product in the world, but then if we don't have any plan to how do we roll it out, and how people can use that properly, then it's probably going to fail. So this is where you want to make sure that the value you created with the product to the users is actually going to be presented to them. So back then it was quite limited to what we can do. These days you have many more things. I will touch on it a bit later, but back then we wrote documentation, we created packaging, we created release notes, we were doing whatever we had to do to make it happen. My next position, I was a CTO at a startup here in Toronto. This startup was called Cardamom Plus. It doesn't exist anymore. We were actually, our clients were mostly in North America, but we had also clients in some other areas of the world. And what we were building was debit card solutions for non-financial institutions. So I moved from developing products for enterprises that are building software, that are building other systems like airplanes and stuff like that, and doing project management, to companies that to financial fintech basically. So it's not that hard to move between these type of things if you have the right mindset and you are learning. So I had to learn a lot when I was doing this, but it was still something that is definitely, you don't have to narrow yourself to only one type of product. So if you always was on fintech, yes, you have an expertise, maybe your learning curve will be much faster, but you can still, if you want to move to other type of products, I think it's doable, and I've done it several times in my career. Now, as a CTO, I had to do a lot of things, and I have to learn a lot of things. And again, I didn't have any product managers, working for me. And, product management back then, I'm talking here between 2005 to 2005 to 2009. Product managers back then was also a very, very, very new thing in North America, all over the world. When you were looking for positions of product managers, you would usually see it's a marketing position. So it was on the marketing side to do some competitive analysis and to package the product and to do the go-to-market messaging of the product. But it wasn't about so much what the users want and building the products with the developers. So it wasn't about the discovery and the delivery that we do today. So I had to do all of that. And part of this, I learned what agility is all about. So we became agile. We didn't yet do Scrum back then. I didn't know what Scrum is. I will learn that later. But I learned about agility, and agility is really important for product management, because I think agility is there. The purpose of agility is for product management. It's for the product. Agility is not for the purpose of building the product, which is what a lot of people are actually confused about when they say agility is Scrum. Scrum is a method, or is a kind of a project management, although I hate using that term, project management, with agility, because it's not. But Scrum is a framework to build software, or to deliver the software, or to deliver projects. But agility is not just for Scrum, or Scrum is not just agility. Agility is for the product itself, so we can learn what users want, we can solve the problems. This is all a product issues. So I learned what agility is. And with that, I also learned other stuff that are required for a product, like refactoring, which is an important thing, tech debt, and how to handle tech debt, or how not to handle tech debt, which are always things that we're asking and we need to know about, mainly when we are working with developers and we're working with the team, because they will come up with that. So we need to plan ahead for these things. I also learned, what is business viability? One of our roles as product managers is we have two risks to reduce. One of them is the value to the users, and the other one is the value or viability to the business. So is this going to work for the business? Can we make money from that? Can we, is there an ROI for that? Can we strive with what we're building? And as a CTO over there, I was responsible for that, to make sure that what we're building is actually going to work for the client, for the business. So can we support it, and other things like that. I also learned a lot about security, mainly because this was the first company where I was working that everything was online. So from scratch, we started building online system. There was no, even with the previous company, some of it was online, some of it was like package that we sent to them and they installed locally at their site. So we had issues with security breaches that we learned in the hard way how to deal with, and that's a lot of these. Sometimes you have to fail in order to succeed. Sometimes you have to be in front of things and get to know these things. So and this is also very important for product managers, because you have your feature requirements, and then you have the non-functional requirements. So the functional requirements will be usually, these are the features I want, I'm writing a story for that. But sometimes many times in the stories that we write, we don't write, I want it to be secure, because it's given that it needs to be secure. And then the developers really needs to make it secure. But if no one talks about it, it's probably not going to be secure. So we need to have these type of things in our heads and outside with the team all the time, that yes, the system needs to be secure. It needs to have, let's say, different languages. It needs to be the performance, it needs to be fast. So these things that usually we don't specify in every story. Another thing I also learned over there is, how to build a team. I was building a team over there. I had developers working for me. I had also in-house, and I mentioned before, I worked with a couple of teams in India and in Israel. And there is different ways to build a team. And one of the things in product management that is really helpful is when you coach the team and you make them learn, and then they have, they are empowered to do things. And that's what, unknowingly, that's what I did back then. Although I also, try to have some control over what we're doing. The control I had was based on the vision and the roadmaps and the prioritization and helping the team learn and stuff like that. But still, I wanted the team that was working with me to have this empowerment and to be able to do things. Then I lost my job, so I was in between jobs, and I also have some learning from that. So I wanted to share this with you. I actually lost jobs 3 times in my career, and it's not the end of the world. It is the end of the world in the first time that it happens, because it never happens to you, and you don't know what to do next. And it's like, they don't like you. What happened over here? I lost it because the company just closed. We had to close for different reasons. I found myself without a job, and I was depressed. So don't get depressed. It happens to many people. That's the first learning. It's very hard when it happens to you. And especially if you have, a family, you have kids, you have a mortgage, you have to pay your bills and stuff like that. So it's very hard, to get over that. So just, as a lesson learned is, many people have gone through that. It's not the end of the world. There is a future for that. Just, if you get depressed, you will be even more depressed. So don't do that. And then back then I started networking a lot. I wasn't very good in networking. I just had to do it to find a new job. And I started doing that, went to events, went to conferences, went to whatever I was able to go and meet people and talk with people, get on the phone, email people. I think this is where I started, being on LinkedIn, or even though back then it wasn't what it is these days. But this was another lesson for me. Then I found this job as a developer manager. So I was still in my head thinking that I need to be in development, in software development, even though a lot of the stuff that I did before was not really software development. A lot of it was product management. But that was like my title. So I thought, okay, I need to find a job in software development. So I find a job with this company called Global Payments. It's a big company all over the world. their headquarters is in the US, and I worked in their Canadian office, but it was a very bad fit for me. And I took it because, I just found it. That was the first person that gave me an offer, so I took it. But what I learned from that was the importance of cultural fit. Now, this is important for every position. It's not just important for product managers, but I wanted to emphasize this because when you look for your job, for your next job, or when you are right now in a specific job, you have to look into and see, is this the good company for me? Do we have the same visions for things? Do we work in the same way? Are we, is it a good cultural fit between the company and me? And that's where sometimes it's hard to assess when you interview and you don't know exactly, but this is where it's really important to see. And these days, again, you have a lot of resources online, so you can see what people are saying about them. There is Glassdoor. I'm not sure how much it is in Nigeria, but in Glassdoor's here at least, you can see a lot of what people are saying about companies. Even that is not accurate sometimes because companies could game with this a bit, I think. But in general, you can try to contact their employees or ex-employees and ask them about them, especially ex-employees, ask them if they would go back there and why they left and stuff like that, if they're willing to tell you. And also when you interview with them, ask them questions. Don't be shy about asking them about, their culture to see, does that fit your culture? So if you have specific ideas about product management and you think this is how product management should be done, ask them about what their ideas about product management, and then see if there is a fit or a big gap. If there is a fit, great. If there is a big gap, maybe you don't want to join them. If the gap is something that you think is not that big, or you have the opportunity in the position to move them towards you, then maybe it's a challenge for you. So always think about these things. The other things I learned over there was, the problem with development in silos, because we had a lot of products that we managed, and we also had working on them like kind of in the room without talking with anyone. So that was one of the problems that I didn't like the company over there, and why the fit wasn't good for me. And every time we release stuff or new features and whatever, people were complaining about them. They were not good. People didn't like them because we didn't really ask users about, what they want. But that was the culture in that company. And I kind of, follow through with the culture instead of trying to do something about it. Luckily for me, they took the entire group that I was managing, including myself, and they decided to outsource it to India. So this is where the second time that I lost my job. But this time I was much smarter. First of all, because I knew already what it was to lose my job. And then I was also, able to say, you know what, maybe this is not the right job title for me. Maybe what I have to look is what is it I really like doing? And I figured that what I really like doing was being that bridge between the users and the clients and talking with them and understanding the problem to the organization that built the software, because that's what I was doing a lot of times in the previous places, as I mentioned before. So this is where I looked for a product manager position. This is where I started saying, you know what, this is the position I need to look for because it's going to be much closer to what I want to do. So, and then my job was to find a job. So when you are unemployed, this is sometimes your job. So you have to really focus on that. So this is where I started at Points International. It's a Canadian company, but we have clients all over the world. Points is doing what they're doing is products for loyalty products. And we basically, my clients were in Europe and in the States, and this was my first official product manager position. This is where I learned what Scrum is all about and what product ownership. I did my certification over there. I learned what user experience is. So I started working with the user experience expert, and I did some user testing. I actually went to the airport. So I had a client in England, Virgin Atlantic, They are, airline, and I wanted to see where what the users are doing and what feedback they're going to give me. So I went to Heathrow, to the airport, because this is where the users are. This is where disloyalty people are. So that was, a lot of great experience that I learned over there. I learned to fail fast. So basically that agility is really about failing fast. So you try something, you release it to the user fast, you see what it is. Or even before that, you build a user experience with the user experience tool, you show it to the users before you build anything, you get their feedback, and you already learned something new without even building anything yet. So that's really was a lot of great learning that product managers need to do. And then observe the users in their natural habitat. So like I said, I observe them at the airport, and this is where they are. They were also at home, but it's hard for me to get, to their homes. So I knew that I can find this loyalty program people at the airport. And entrepreneurship, this is an interesting one. So you know all about entrepreneurship, which is building your own company and whatever. Entrepreneurship is when you work for a company and you're inside the company and you see that there are opportunities to improve over there, but no one is doing anything about it. So it's okay sometimes, and I think in most of the times, and companies do appreciate that, when you say, you know what, I see a problem here, I want to try to solve it. And sometimes you will try to solve it even without permission from your boss, and you show them the solution, or you show them a prototype or a proof of concept, and they're like, oh, wow, this is amazing, let's do that. And that's what I did over there. We didn't have user testing. We didn't do that. This is something I learned outside of the job, reading books and stuff like that. And I told them, listen, I want to do this. I want to go and test this hypothesis that I have. I want to design something and test this design and fail fast before we develop that. So they gave me, I was able to convince the company to do that, and they gave me the budget to do it. And with the clients, I convinced the client to do it. That was Virgin Atlantic, and we went and did it. So that was really how you can be inside the company, do that. Sorry that I'm going fast because I see the time is running out very quickly. The next company I worked with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. The next one was Firmex, which is a virtual data room company, software provider in Canada also. And our clients were like mostly in Canada and Europe, America, Canada and Europe, but also in other places of the world. I was a senior product manager over there. The things that I learned over there was to look at data. How do we look at data? How do we do product analytics? This is where I was looking for products that helped me with that, and I implemented Pendo. Pendo is one of those products that can do that for you. In-app messaging is another thing, and Pendo does it also. So in-app messaging is where you go and you put inside your product different messaging to the users, like onboarding flow, or maintenance window message, or a new feature message, or a survey. So you connect with your users through your product. Before that, I didn't have any of that, so I always have to connect with them some other ways. And at Firmex, one of the problems I had was that the account managers and the salespeople protected them the users. They didn't want me to connect with them because they were afraid what I was going to tell them. So I find ways around it by implementing this product, and then through their usability, I pop up this message, and then I was able to connect with them because they reply back to me. So these are also things that you can think about how to do. And that's what I said: bypass sales and account managers to speak with the users. And then I also learned the risks of Scrum. This is where I actually was hired. One of the reasons I was hired over there was because I had the Scrum experience from before, and they were still waterfall. And they asked me to convert the company to Scrum. So I taught everyone Scrum. I was their Scrum master in the first 6 months, and I was their coach, the Scrum coach and Agile coach. But I did it very strict in a way that I learned before, and I did it before. And then I was there for 3 years, and I saw that instead of becoming agile, we were very strict on the Scrum, and we were very like, we have to do this and we have to do that. And we became unagile. And that's one of the risks with Scrum, that you can become very strict about the process, and do it only for the delivery instead of the discovery. You don't do much of discovery, and then you're really not agile. So we were doing a lot of waterfalls. Every waterfall was 2 weeks because that was our sprint size, and it was not that good. So this is where I kind of changed my mind about Scrum, or about Agile in general, that Scrum is not Agile, and Agile is really about the product, and you always have to look at the product to see, am I making a value to the users? Am I solving a problem? Am I learning quickly enough? And if my Scrum process is creating issues with that, then I'm not agile enough to do that. Then I joined a company called Ross Intelligence. That was a startup also here in Toronto. Again, it doesn't exist anymore, the startup, unfortunately. We built over there AI solution for searching for legal searches. So lawyers can go and search and get through the AI and much better answers to their questions. It was in Canada, but all of our clients were in the US because it was based on the US law. What I learned over there is that product management for AI product is a much different beast than other type of products. You have less control about the results in AI, because AI is all about the statistics and the usage and the scores that you're getting, and it's not black and white. Where when you develop a regular software, not AI, there is the rules, and even if they're very complex, you can follow the rules, and then you will know this. When you do this, this happens. When you do this, this happens. With AI, it's a much more in between them. It's a very gray range, and it makes product management a bit harder for you. But then you have to focus more on the vision and where you want to go, rather than on the nuances of every feature or stuff like that. Also gaining trust. This is where I was really working with many young people. Nothing against young people, but we had a bit of I told you when I started my career, so you can guess how old I am. So we had a bit of a generation gap, and with all the experience I brought, and they coming out of school or whatever it is, we had these things about, what is your position as a product owner or as a product manager? They didn't really understand it. So there's a lot of this gaining trust with the organization. And this organization, you remember before we talked about sales-driven organization? This one was a solution or technology-driven organization. And that's also one of the reasons they don't exist anymore, because they had they thought they identified the problem, and then they identified the solution for the problem using AI, but they didn't really see that people are going to buy and use it. So when you are going with a tech-driven organization because you love the technology and you want to solve a problem with that technology, it doesn't mean that people actually are going to use that. And that's the lesson that we learned, that there was, it's much more than just the technology that you're bringing to the table. You also need to make sure, first of all, the problem is real. People will be able to use it. People will use it. People will be willing to pay for you to use it. And then that you don't have other issues. And in that case, there was additional issues with some legal competitors that were suing us and all of that stuff. So that's was a complex situation, but it's important to learn that. So here again, I found myself between Joes because again, the company closed. But this time I wasn't depressed. I already knew that I want to continue to be a product manager. So you see, I had a smiley face. And I took the opportunity also to do something on my own, to build something. I was working on my book. I did other things. I was trying to validate some ideas that I have. I wasn't able to validate, or they failed. This validation failed because it wasn't a good idea, but at least I did things and learned from them and learning new things. And I knew that this will pass because I already been there. And then this is where I work today at Procom. It's a Canadian company. We also have presence in the US, so it's mostly Canada and the US. I'm a senior product manager over there. What we're doing over there is, again, completely different from anything I've done before. The product itself, it's a staffing agencies, so we're dealing with hiring people. So this is, I didn't have a problem to get into that, even though I never worked for recruitment people, a recruitment company. But here I also learned, even though I did stakeholder management before, I learned, I'm learning all the time. And that's the beauty of these things, that every day I'm learning new things. I love learning. If I had the chance to stay at school, I would stay at school for forever. But, you know, someone has to work. So stakeholder management is a tough thing. And I have some tough stakeholders where I work. So sometimes I was very fed up with them. I was like, okay, that's not for me. I need to leave this place because these stakeholders are so hard to deal with. But this is part of the challenge. And at the end of the day, you will have tough stakeholders everywhere you work. So you have to deal with that. Some of it is communications, so socializing with them, speaking with them outside of work, not just about the job. Trying to get them to come up with the ideas versus you come up with the ideas and try to force it on them. A lot of communication all the time. Grow from within is another thing. You see that I'm keeping being a senior product manager for a few positions, and my goal is to become a director or CPO or head of product in a company. But many companies like to have people grow from within rather than hire from outside and, you know, and stuff like that. So this is also one of those things that in the past I would move companies. This time I'm staying put and I'm trying to grow from within and show what I can do over there. Changing to product mindset, it's another thing that I saw when I mentioned before about this gap between what you think about product management and what they know or do about product management. And this is where my personal goals throughout my career over there is to bring them to product management slowly but surely. So these days they are much more centered on product than what they were 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago when I joined. One of the things I did was a book club. I created a book club for product. The first book we read was Inspired by Marty Kagan, and we read it together. Every week we were discussing a different chapter, or every 2 weeks, a different chapter. And this way, I slowly got them into the product mindset. They are much more agile today. We actually are not doing Scrum, but we're very agile without doing Scrum. So this is really a good work in progress. Influencing without authority, that's another thing we have to know as product managers. And everything I mentioned is like this book club is how I influence them to move to product management. I also wanted to mention, you know, the product for product podcast, because that's, although, you know, it's a side hustle that I do, it's another project that I do. I also learn from it, you know, about product, how to build on a shoestring budget, for example. I don't have any budget for this. So we find free tools, we use our free time. So it's really a lot of fun to do that. We experiment and we grow slowly. So we don't have like huge aspirations. It's just, again, because we do it for the fun. So we experiment with different content and how to do these different things. And then also, what is a product? So a product is not just, you know, a piece of software that we build. It could be many other things. So a podcast is also a product, and you want also to find your market fit. You know, who are your listeners? What do they want to hear? What would they want to hear next? How often would they want to hear? Do they have any problem when they hear it, and stuff like that? And then my last gig or side hustle is also, you know, being an author. And even the book that I wrote and just published last week, so this is really, really new, very fresh. I wrote it actually for 8 years. So it took me 8 years to get here. And most of the time I thought it will never be published. But some of the lessons also as product managers is to find your creativity. How are you? Creativity is everywhere, and creativity is not just about painting or writing, but it could be about many other things. So you can be creative also at your work, and then apply product methods to build the book. So like I was trying to think, okay, so how do I do everything I know? So I found beta users, so beta readers, and I let them read the book. I got feedback from them. I sent them surveys. I interviewed them. So I tried to do a lot of things that are similar to what I do in my day job as a product manager, to build a book or to write a book and publish a book that will be the best book that I can. And this is that product market fit, like who are my readers, where are they, and stuff like that. So that's it. I would love to connect with everyone. Some of my connections information, my website, the LinkedIn, Product for Product podcast is on Spotify and on Apple and on other podcasts. And we also have a page on LinkedIn, so you can follow the page. Every time we have new episodes, we announce it over there. And then the book is available online. I know that Evelyn tried to buy it from Nigeria and she had some trouble. So I don't know if it was locally for her or for everyone. I'm not sure about that. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Moshe. This is a whole load, I'll say trailer load of experience.
Yes, a lot of stuff.
Trailer load of experience. It's a whole lot, and it's quite insightful to see how you transitioned, coming from where you started from the technical aspect of things. I saw that you were doing like technical director, CTO in the initial stages. I kind of have some questions that I've listed out, but I'm going to start from what we have. We have some questions that have also been dropped in the chat section. So please, everybody, if you have any questions at all for Moshe, please just drop it in the chat section, and then Moshe can just go through it and then answer it quickly while we have Moshe answer it quickly. So if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat section. Okay, Moshe, if you look at the chat session, you can see a number of questions already dropping in. So you can just take it from top to bottom.